Hey y'all, it's Ashley Bookishrealm and I am back with another Vlogmas video. Today is day number 12. I had to look at the calendar to make sure that, dates and stuff make sense. But we are here to talk a little bit about romance. Just a little bit of romance. If you hear a little noise in the background, I have my little one with me. Okay, so the song for today, Snowflakes of Love. I used this song last year, I believe. I'm pretty sure I used this song last year. Once again, another song that I'm not gonna try to sing because it's a little different than the key that I'm used to. I just don't want to torture y'all's ears again. It's just one of those things. So like I said, little ones in the background, if you hear her, don't mind it. It is what it is. So I'm here to talk a little bit about diversifying your romance, Snowflakes of Love. I was like, I definitely could do something with romance, but I want to do something a little different because I am going to be talking about my favorite romances of 2021, but I wanted to talk about this topic a little bit. So I am not the first person to do this topic. Clearly, a lot of people have talked about what it means to diversify your romance. There are a lot of videos that exist that talk about the importance of reading Black love. Deidre and I from Shade Tree Reads, we have that Black romance channel, which we are going to be diving back into next year. I just got super busy with work and everything, which, I wasn't really posting to my channel for a little bit. So we both just needed to take a little bit of break, but we will be coming back in full force next year. So the reason why I picked this topic, like I said, is because I often talk about diversifying your books and your reading and just making sure that you're touching on as many topics and perspectives as possible. And I think the same thing is applicable in romance. Now, for me, my biggest thing is reading Black love romance. I typically read more Black love romance than anything, and it's super important to me to read that because of the history that is behind Black love and how historically families were not able to maintain their family unit. Black love was especially hard during this time, meaning that people were separated, the family unit was destroyed. So it's just nice and wonderful to be able to see two Black individuals in love without the trauma and the pain. For me, what's really interesting is that there are a lot of people who read romance in the booktube community, and it's not saying that everybody who reads romance in the booktube community does not read diversely, but I do see a lot of people who stick to reading what they feel is, I guess, their comfort zone, meaning that we have a white heroine and a white hero who are falling in love, going through whatever they're going through to get their HEA or their HFN. And it's troublesome to me because I feel like you're missing out on a plethora of different stories. And for me, just like I want to see different means of diversity in the books that I'm reading, I apply the same principle to me reading romance. It's no different than any other genre or age categorization that I will pick. I find that people are hesitant in reading Black love romance because it makes them feel uncomfortable. And I could be very wrong for that. I could basically end up catching a lot of flack for saying that, but at this point I really do feel like it is something that needs to be said. And like I keep saying, I'm not the first person to say this. There are people who have been talking about Black love romance before me. There'll be people talking about it after me. There are people who are out there making great content that really focuses on Black love romance. I am not the pioneer of this. I just want to add my voice to the cumulative amount of voices who keep saying that Black love romance is romance that you can relate to. And one of the key things that I think a lot of people say is that, like, if you can read all of this sci-fi and fantasy and weird romance where you have humans falling in love with animals and various creatures, then what is stopping you from reading Black love romance? I think that a lot of times when people step into reading Black love romance, they often think of street lit and they're like, well, I can't relate to that. But then that's also an issue with me as well, because at the end of the day, if you love things like mafia romance, then you're basically reading street lit with white people. It's no different. It's very similar. The whole setup, the dynamics, all of it is pretty much the same. I think that I end up struggling with it a lot because I know that there are a lot of great Black romance authors out there. I know that there are people who highlight authors like Christina C. Jones, Ashley Nicole Falls, Alexandra Warren, Alexandria House. The list can go on and on and on and on and on and on. I think there are plenty of people out there there that do highlight it, but I just want to see more. Somebody's trying to make a guest appearance. I think one of the most important things that I wanted to highlight with this is that if you did not know, which I'm not sure how people don't know, is that romance is the highest selling genre of any genre when it comes to talking about adult literature. It is the genre that moves the market. And yet what I've been seeing lately on like Book Talk and Bookstagram and Booktube on the romance side is that people still won't push the boundaries of the material that's out there in terms of like reading diversely about characters that just don't look like you, don't have the same experiences as you, whether that's in terms of ability, race, ethnicity, whether those individuals are a part of the LGBTQIA plus community. Not to say, like, I'm going to keep saying this, it's not to say that it doesn't exist and that people aren't doing it. I just wish that there were greater amounts of people highlighting this content, especially those that have kind of a more influential role in terms of the romance community. I think that, you know, it's easy to pick up a book that features two white characters that are not queer, that are able-bodied, and I just don't know how you can call yourself a romance expert and present yourself as a romance expert when you don't even try to push the boundaries of what you're reading. And I think that's probably what bothers me. So what ends up happening is this cycle. The same books keep getting recommended in the romance genre over and over and over again because of the fact that people are not expanding their taste. And I've seen a couple people who've delved into, you know, some of the bigger known names, and I'm speaking more so in the realm of Black romance because that's where I have a little bit more experience. And I always say I'm not a romance expert. I'm not the one who holds the keys to the gate and giving you everything that you need to know about romance. That's just not me. I know too many people who are better at that than me. One of the top people that comes to my mind is definitely Izzy from Happy for Now. Izzy is a big proponent of reading as diversely as possible, even though she primarily reads romance. She delves into everything, whether that's Black love, whether that's delving into romance that features people that identify as queer. Like, she does such an excellent job of that. Also, Bree from In Love and Other Words. Bree, don't come for me now if I accidentally got your channel name wrong. I'm going off the top of the dome right now. But I know people who do that. I just wish that there were more people who looked at romance in that sense, where it's a genre too that has a lot of diversity to offer, but people are not picking up the diverse titles that they have. Now, there was a point where I felt like people were trying to, but once again, like I've talked about in my Is It Important to Read Diversely video, people often slip back into what feels comfortable. Like I always say, there's nothing wrong with reading for comfort. I think that it is human nature to want to read for comfort, but in order to really push the market, once again, you know, with romance, it's already high selling, but quite often I feel like we see a lot of the same narratives getting pushed and pushed and pushed. Now, I do think that there are some releases that are coming out in 2022 that do highlight, you know, perspectives that are not typically seen in romance, but there should be more. I think one of the things that I have a colleague, or more a colleague who is very adamant about the fact that there should be, you know, most of your stuff should be diverse. And I think that publishing needs to follow the same suit. But if we're not telling publishing that these are romances that matter, that seeing people fall in love from all walks of life is important, then once again, they're not going to fight to push, which is why you have that dynamic of a lot of Black authors who choose the option to go more independent than they do traditional, because they just don't feel like traditional publishing offers them the same opportunities, the same space to tell their stories as if they were just to put out their stories themselves. And I feel like that's so heart-wrenching to a certain capacity, because it's like, dang, these people should have the arena to be able to tell their love stories, to highlight two Black people falling in love, two queer people falling in love. And like I said, it's not that it doesn't exist. I would be foolish in saying that it doesn't exist, but I think there could be more. There's always room for improvement. And unless we we as consumers make them believe that, hey, you have to improve this. I just don't think that publishing is going to want to do it, and that's really, really unfortunate. It can be really frustrating and irritating, I think, too, when you see that people are willing to read, like I said before, romances between like two different species, but the idea and the concept of reading two black people in love is the most strange thing that people just can't get past. For some people, the closest that they'll get to even stepping into the realm of reading something like black romance is to pick up a book that features a black character and a white character, but at the end of the day, that's interracial romance. It's not black romance. And I think that I would love to see in 2022 people really push the boundaries and what they consider to be their romance, reading. I'm not as heavily involved on Book Talk as a couple of other people are, but the recommendations for romance that come from Book Talk are very mainstream. They often feature the same characters. It's never a lot of diversity that's included in it, and it's almost as if people treat this genre as if diversity doesn't exist. Same thing when I see like people read a lot of historical romance. There are historical romance writers outside of Beverly Jenkins, but it's just like I feel like I don't see people take the effort and the time to find those historical romance readers. Like, yes, Beverly Jenkins, Queen Bev, writes great historical romance between two black characters, and it's important to see that, especially because historical romance is dominated by white women that feature two white characters in the story, but there are others who do write historical romance that feature two black characters outside of Bev Jenkins. I think that what happens there is you have to push the boundaries of the authors that you're looking at. I ended up finding a whole entire group of West African writers who focus on writing historical romance, and these historical romances really featured black love in a historical setting, but it wasn't the traditional way that you were looking at it in terms of, it wasn't set in the United States. It wasn't a Western perspective, but it's still a historical romance, and it's still featuring black love. But if you're not pushing the envelope and looking to find those romances, you're automatically going to assume that they don't exist. You're going to continue to read what you know or what has been highlighted the most, and then you just don't get the opportunity to see anything else. So while I see pieces and parts of people who are attempting to make that change, who work hard to make that change, I just want to see it more. I will read pretty much anything that I can get my hands on. So I've read those alien romances. I've read mafia romances. I've read street lit. I've read black love. I've read romances with people who have disabilities. I think that when we put in that effort to see such a wide range and we delve more into that, then we are sending a message that these romances are just as important as your standard romance, and that in traditional romance, it is important to highlight these stories. I think that there were some great insights to what it meant to have diversity in traditional publishing, a while ago, and Deidre and I talked a little bit about like the history of black love romance and its role in publishing on a live show. I'll make sure that I link that down below. It's on that channel. Now that's what I call black love. I almost couldn't get that right. We talk a little bit about that, and I think that I wish that energy, I wish more people knew about the history of that and how hard so many people have fought really to make sure that there's equal access to all people to the genre of romance, which that equal access hasn't always existed, and we still see traces of it not really doing what it should be doing. It's like it's a mess. It's a complete mess that those voices that are marginalized or voices that are just different are not highlighted by the people who quote unquote feel like they hold the reins to romance. I just feel like I keep going back to the concept of you can't really consider yourself to be a romance expert if you're not willing to dip your toes into everything. And I don't know why I just keep feeling this need, because I think when I say that, people feel like, well, I read what I like and what I know, and I just read the authors that, I love. It doesn't matter what their race is. And there's a fallacy in that argument, to be honest with you, because at the end of the day, you are perpetuating the same trends that have been going on in publishing for a very, very long time. You continue to tell them that these are the stories that matter the most. These are the most important stories. You tell your followers, these are the stories that matter. These are the stories that you should be reading, when really you're missing out on a whole plethora of stories, love stories, things that people can connect to, people could see themselves in, because of the fact that you're only highlighting one story. For me, that means that you're not a romance expert. To me, that means that you're a romance expert in reading romances that feature a white heroine and a white hero. And you should take that label and not say or consider yourself to be a romance expert. And I don't think that you should be looked at as a romance expert at that point, because you don't know everything. And, you know, I've seen lately on TikTok this whole argument come up with like mafia versus street lit, and people say they don't feel comfortable reading street lit when they are the equivalent of each other. They literally are the same thing. It's no difference between mafia romance and street lit, but people just don't want to push those boundaries and read street lit because they may not feel like, you know, this is not what I'm comfortable reading. But it's like, it's the same thing. The only difference, honestly, is that you're dealing with two black characters. I mean, honest to God, you literally are dealing with two black characters. There's no difference. I think that for me, you know, it's just one of those things, once again, where I keep going back to the fact that, you know, I don't really consider myself to be an expert in any particular genre, to be quite honest with you, because I feel like I read too all over the place to say that I'm an expert in anything. But I just don't feel comfortable giving recommendations for any genre when I just haven't read enough of different experiences within that genre. I think that some genres are harder than others, but I know that romance is not, and that there's too many romance books out there that just highlight so many different experiences, and it's such a shame that they don't get put on the forefront, because we're so used to sticking to what everyone knows best. And this is not a shot at the romance community, because I feel like I'm going to piss some people in the romance community off, but I'm calling a spade at the end of the day. Like, I watch a lot of people and I get disappointed when I'm like, dang, like I wish that there was more diversity that you were highlighting. There were more authors that you were highlighting, more people that really just do not have the same lived experience as you. And like I said, there are booktubers, book talkers, bookstagrammers that are doing that much better than I ever could, because romance is their primary genre. That's what they eat, they sleep, and they breathe, and they're good at it, and they do the best that they can, which is a pretty heck of a good job. But I just wish that their voices were louder, because of the fact that they are the ones who advocate for diverse reading in this genre. They're the ones who fight so hard to bring light to diverse titles in this genre. And it's unfortunate when people who have bigger voices are the ones that are being listened to and they don't read as diversely as some individuals. So like I said, I probably will catch some flack for this video, but I just feel like it's one of those things where it's something that I constantly see. You know, it's something that Deidre and I have talked about often. It's something that we've really highlighted on that. Now that's what I call Black Love Channel. And it's something that we wanted to continue to highlight and talk about. And it's something that we want to continue to highlight and talk about. So if you know, share your thoughts in your comments. It's just a subject matter that always is on my mind as a romance reader. It's something that I think about constantly. So, you know, let me know your comments down below in the comment box. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, click the bell for notifications. Looking for ways to support the channel, looking for ways to follow me on social media, all that stuff will be down in the description box below. And I will be back with another Vlogmas video tomorrow.